Okay, so tonight we're not going to do the usual Tehillim Psalms, since I'll be away for a week. We're going to do Parashat Vaetchanan, which is the Parasha of next week. The Devarim I did last night. Right now on YouTube there are various series that I've done on the Parasha. One is called Insights into the Parasha, and there will be one called Highlights. So in those series on the Parasha, there is an overview of what is going on in the Parasha. What we're doing now is a series on the lessons that we can derive from the Parasha, important, valuable lessons. So it's a little bit different. In other words, even though Parashat Vaetchanan contains a lot of information, we're not just going to be going through all that information. If you want to have an idea of a little bit of what the Parasha entails, the series Insights into the Parasha pretty much goes through it. But this Parasha Vaetchanan is usually after Tisha B'Av, after we mourn for the destruction of the temple, and it contains in the Haftarah consolation. Consolation, in other words, we are being comforted by the prophets in reminding us, yes, unfortunately the bad prophecies did come true. You were warned, and unfortunately we experienced the loss of the first temple, then the second one. We've gone through a lot in this very, very extended diaspora. And we're told, wait. Just like the bad, the difficult prophecies came true, you will see the good ones will also come true very soon. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this is in our lifetime. We're seeing some of those prophecies come true. And that's the consolation. But could it really be a complete consolation? What about the Holocaust survivors who are still around today? A lot of their wounds have not healed yet. They're still very, very disturbed emotionally. Many have gone through tremendous trauma, having seen firsthand many of their relatives killed. So for them, what kind of consolation could you offer? Now we know that when Mashiach comes, it's going to be something very, very special, out of this world. But it's not easy to convince someone who went through the challenges of the Holocaust for such a long time, especially the ones from Poland. 5-6 years of hell. You know, we can't even understand, can't fathom what they went through. So what can we tell them? What's going to make them feel good? How do we explain it to them, what they went through? So in this week's Parasha, we do have a little bit of an idea. Moshe, remember, this is right before he passes away from the world, so he shares a lot of information with us. He's telling us things that are going to be in the future. He knows already in advance that the Jewish people are going to err. They're going to be misled. And a lot of terrible things are going to happen to them. He knows this all in advance. So he wants to prepare us. How are we going to deal with the future events? And he tells us, listen, just keep in mind the following. Even though you may go through a lot of pain and suffering, and you will, just remember, it's all out of Hashem's love. It's not of Hashem's hate. A lot of non-Jews always misunderstood the persecution of Jews as an indication, you see, God hates you. He has abandoned you. He doesn't want you anymore. He has replaced you. That's what some claim. And Moshe reminds us that's not true. Don't ever think like that. It's all me'ahava Hashem etchem. He has had a loving relationship with you even though he's upset at you. It's all out of love. Is this love? But you've heard of something called tough love, haven't you? Tough love. You love somebody very, very much, but unfortunately he's addicted, whether it's to drugs or alcohol. And he on his own will not seek help. Sometimes you have to kick him out of the house. You have to really be very, very tough on him. But this is out of love. You don't hate him. It's for his own good and his own benefit. Hopefully all that treatment that he will seek, he will get against his wishes, will help him in the long run. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu tells us. It's all for the good. You may not see it. You may not even understand it when the time comes. I'm letting you know, therefore, beforehand. You should know Hashem loves you. Not only does Hashem love you, Hashem swore. He swore to you that one day He will bring you back home. He will rebuild the temple. He will reestablish you. He will embrace you again. You will be His nation. So all of this is being told to us in advance so that we should not think what people are telling us, others, oh, that's it. you're no longer wanted, you've been kicked out, your home has been destroyed, you're never going home again. We're going home. It's a fact. Now, had I been giving this lecture 200 years ago in Halib, people would have said, Inshallah, my grandchildren should see this. Today, we're seeing it. We're seeing the beginning of it, hopefully the end as well. But it's happening before our eyes. It's unfolding as we speak. What do we see? The good prophecies are for real. They're coming true. So, the difficult times that we've had was tough love. That's all it was. It was never hate. It was never meant to be like that. Hashem swore to us. Why does he need to swear? Hashem needs to swear. Sometimes human beings have to take an oath. We don't trust them. The Shevuah of Hashem is just to reinforce the whole idea. Hashem says, I swear to you, I'm telling you, this is not just a wish. This is going to happen one day. You're going to see it. Especially if we're so long in the diaspora, such a long exile, one may think that's it. Nothing has happened till now. Who's to say that it will yet happen? Yes, Hashem swore it's going to happen. But even though Hashem loved us, and he says he does, and he always will, the problem with love is that it's not always reciprocated. This happens in marriages too. This happens between friends. Not everyone demonstrates a love that he should have. He should have because the other one has been kind to him. The other one has been nice to him. Why aren't you reciprocating? Don't you want to have that loving relationship? Why is it so difficult for people to love, to connect to someone else? Now, we're not going to give here a whole lecture about that, but some of it is important because it fits in with what we're trying to explain here. How come Hashem, who has been so loving to us and has been so good and performed so many miracles, can't we understand it? Can't we reciprocate it? And that was the topic of Parashat Devarim somewhat, that the Navi complains, how come an ox knows its master, and a donkey knows who feeds him and takes care of him? Animals should know, and human beings should not realize that. So I've covered that in Parashat Devarim. Here, the discussion is more about love. What is missing? That Hashem is very, very clear that he loves us, and that we are not willing or not able to reciprocate it. So we have to understand why not. Perhaps I'll give you a brief introduction into human psychology and behavior. Because if we understand how people behave, we can understand why they're not willing to commit. Because love is a certain type of commitment. When I was in Israel for several years studying, in those days, I'm talking about the 70s, in order to make a phone call, they used something called asimon. You probably remember. Asimon is a token. It's not a real coin. You buy them, and you place it in the phone. And you may need several of them to continue to talk. So that was the way people made phone calls. There was no cell phones, nothing of that. People went to a phone booth and used asimonim. Not everybody had change all the time on them. So it was quite common for a boy in the yeshiva to ask someone else, Yesh lecha asimon? By the way, do you have an asimon that you can lend me? And people approached me too. And I had, and I gave. The problem is that the majority of them never gave it back to me. And they would come back and ask again and again. After a while, I didn't give them. Now, what was my excuse? I wasn't going to tell them straight out, you're not honest and you don't give me back, you owe me several. I just told them I don't have, even though I did have. My intent was I don't have for you, I have it for someone else to give. There was another gentleman who asked for an asimon, and he took out his little notebook and he wrote down. I borrowed an asimon from him, and of course by writing it down I knew that I can trust him. He was more of a responsible young man. But the question is, what's wrong? Why can't they write it down or remember and just give it back? You know that this is a problem with adults too, not just young men. People borrow money, and some of them even don't plan to give back the money. It's not that they don't have it. They don't plan to give it back. Somehow, some people don't care about other people's money. Now, I'm not talking about stealing. I'm talking about borrowing and not returning what they borrowed. So what's missing over here? What exactly is wrong with them? I call it a lack of loyalty. And you may ask, what does this have to do with loyalty? But you can understand that loyalty is something very, very special. It's something that we expect from people, but somehow not everyone wants to be loyal. Not everyone does what's needed to be loyal. So at the bottom, what is prompting these people to be irresponsible in a sense is a lack of loyalty. Not everyone seeks friendship. Not everyone wants to bond with another individual to the point where they're willing to do everything for them. Because what is love? Love means to care about another human being. That's what love is. Love is not passion, where you feel certain feelings towards them. Love really means to care. To care means to give. To give means that you prepare sometimes to even sacrifice for someone else, even if it's hard for you. And it's not easy. Not everyone wants that. Oh, it's too difficult. It involves responsibility. So loyalty is a big word. It's a big word because to be loyal means you need to care, you need to be responsible. So when we say someone is not loyal enough, it's because he's not wanting to be responsible, or he doesn't know what it is to be responsible. He doesn't value the relationship, the friendship. He doesn't seek it. Rabbis have to tell us, "K'neh lecha chaver," acquire for yourself a friend. How many people do you know that are friends for the rest of their life? For 50 years. They keep in touch, they go out, they meet, assuming that they live not too far from each other. They care about each other. They invest in their relationship. You don't have that type of relationship very often. You don't see it. It's rare. But the rabbis tell us it's good, because if you have a loyal friend who cares about you, he's going to tell it to you in your face if something that you're doing is wrong. And you're going to listen to him because you know he's your friend. There's a lot of benefits to having a very close friend that you can trust. When people say, I have lots of friends, you know they have no friends. Because they don't mean friends. They mean perhaps acquaintances. There's a big difference between an acquaintance and a friend. And that's what people have today, very superficial type of relationship. And that takes a toll on marriage too, because it reflects on the marriage. If people are not really wanting to have close relationships with people, they don't trust, they don't want to assume responsibilities and commit, then how's it going to be at home? You think it's going to be any better? Not necessarily. It may be a little bit better because there's children and I guess I have no choice. But in principle, people are not necessarily going to go out of the way if it's too difficult of a challenge for them to give to someone else, if they're not really loyal by nature. Now I'm saying by nature because I'm going to introduce something that is not by nature. So there is something called nature, that some people, by nature, depending, believe it or not, on their astrological sign, depending also on their upbringing. You've heard the saying, charity begins at home, right? So certain things definitely are learned. Certain things we are born with, inclinations. But the rest depends on our free will, the choices that we make. And I'll tell you right now what it is, even though I'm going to mention it later. It's called the fear of God, Yirat Elokim. How much Yirat Elokim, how much fear of God does one have? I'm accountable for what I do. I better be careful, right? Somebody who's Yirei Elokim, who's God-fearing, is more careful. He doesn't want to do something that's wrong. If he made a mistake, he feels bad. That already depends on his choice. That's not something that we're born with. That's complete free will. We may learn about it, yes, we're taught about this, but still we're going to be exercising our own free will. We're going to be making a choice in our adult years whether we want to follow this path of God-fearing life, a life full of Yirat Shamayim or not. That's where it's going to depend on. So in order for us to be loyal, it requires for us to value something. If we don't value something, then we're not going to be loyal to it. Loyalty therefore means I value it, I care about it, I want to give to it, depending on what we're talking about. So, because Moshe Rabbeinu knows in the future loyalty may be a problem, it will be a big problem, he tells us, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The famous verse that we say in our prayers, that people say right before they die, or that they say if they're be'et sarah in a time of trouble. What does the word Shema Yisrael mean? Hear, O Israel, your God is one God. Well, obviously what we're saying is that we believe in one God. Yeah, but what's so powerful about it, about this statement? The word Shema, even though literally it means listen, it doesn't really mean listen over here. It means accept. Accept this fact. Accept this as true. Shema means tekablu, accept it. Not just to hear. A lot of people hear things, but they don't necessarily accept it and really, really commit to it. So Shema means accept, commit to this. Commit to whatever it entails. You accept God as a fact, then this involves a certain amount of commitment to it. What is that commitment called? Ol Malchut Shamayim, the yoke of heaven. Yoke of heaven means observance of the mitzvot. The rabbis tell us if you want to recall at all times what Shema means, look at the letters. Shema, Shin Mem Ain, backwards, the last letters, Ol Malchut Shamayim. Shin Mem Ain. If you read it from the end, that Ain being the first one, it stands for, in an abbreviated form, Ol Malchut Shamayim. When should you receive the yoke of heaven? Shahrit Mincha Arvit. Again, Shin Mem Ain. So you have in that word a reminder of what is involved. What's involved is to accept upon ourselves the yoke of heaven. That is what we're committing to. That is what we're accepting. It's not just, oh, I believe it. I'm a good Jew in my heart. Oh, no. To be Jewish means to do ma'asim. It means to commit. It means to observe mitzvot. It's not just, I believe it, I understand it, I identify with it. Let's see if you're really serious about it. Let's see if you observe the mitzvot. That is why when a non-Jew comes to convert, a sincere non-Jew wishes to convert, not because he wants to marry a Jewish girl, or not because she wants to marry a Jewish boy, they really want to convert. As you know, Judaism does not go out and seek people like the missionaries do. This is our role, this is our mission. Everyone else has a different mission. You don't have to convert, you don't have to be a part of the Jewish nation. We won't try hard to convince you. But if somebody nonetheless does want it, there's something in him that is driving him to convert. There's a holy spark that is acting like a magnet. I call it a magnet because divinity is attracted to divinity. And there's something divine in him. He identifies with this. He's more spiritual. So he wants to. What are we going to do? We're going to see. We're going to ask him. We're going to try to investigate. And we're going to tell him what's involved. And we remind him, listen, Judaism does not only mean circumcision for the man and immersion in the mikveh, in a ritual bath. It means kiyum ha-mitzvot. It means to observe all the mitzvot that apply. Are you prepared for that? Because some people might think, oh, it's so easy, just circumcision and go to the mikveh. Just that's it. No. It's a life of commitment, and you never retire from this commitment. Are you prepared for that? It can only be done completely. You cannot do it halfways. So what's your answer? Obviously, somebody who really wants it and cares about it, studies hard, is prepared for the exam, and goes along with it. But you'll be surprised, not everyone sticks with it. Because after a while, they realize that it requires commitment, loyalty. And that's too difficult for some people, for some reason. So here we're not talking about those who want to convert, because obviously we're more concerned about those who are already in the club. They're members already. And we want them to stay members. So that's what the focus here is. Why are they not as loyal? Somebody else who's being introduced to it may have thought, this looks interesting, I think I can do it. But maybe later on he realizes it's too difficult. So we're not going to blame them. Jews are born into Jewish families, and for many of them it's not too difficult because they were spoon-fed all this information, depending on the schools they went to, depending on the friends they have. Of course, all of this makes a difference. But in the end, you still have some who are more loyal than others, and that's what we're trying to understand here. Why some more and some less? So Moshe Rabbeinu continues on to tell us, there will come a time that you will realize that you were wrong, you've made mistakes, and you will know it, and you will return to him. Wow. Moshe Rabbeinu is already telling us that there will be a generation that will be distant from Judaism, not observing at all. They're going to have a hard time. They're still going to be persecuted. The Nazis didn't care if you were observant or not. The fact that your great-great-great-grandmother was Jewish was enough to send you to the camp of extermination. So hopefully, if you begin to think and reflect about what Judaism is at some point, especially if you're going through so much trouble, you will return. So what is Moshe Rabbeinu telling us? That only one who has some clarity, some knowledge about what it means to be Jewish, has a chance to come back to it and to begin to observe the mitzvot. One who has no clarity, who doesn't understand what this is all about, is going to have a more difficult time. So getting back to what we were saying before, you have to care about something. How is somebody going to care if he doesn't understand what it's all about? Why should he value this? Why is this important for me? Why is this mitzvah of eating kosher and not eating non-kosher, why is that so important? There's a lot of Orientals that eat almost anything that crawls. Things that crawl, that a lot of people are disgusted by that. But they're still healthy. They're strong. They're happy. Nothing happens to them. So obviously the laws of kashrut, we know, have nothing to do with health. Even though it may be somewhat related, some things may not be healthy for us, but that's not the reason why we observe those mitzvot. Hashem said, listen, this is for your own good. You have a divine soul. In order for you to observe the mitzvot, I'm letting you know, I created you. Stay away from this, otherwise it's going to somehow interfere with your mission. It's going to contaminate your heart, your mind, whatever. We don't really know the real reasons, even though we have an idea that it has something to do with contaminating our mind and our heart. Even though physically it doesn't do anything to the body necessarily. Imagine having zebra meat. Cute animal with stripes. Why not? Why can't you have it? You know, and it's not a carnivore, so it's not like you know what they say, you are what you eat. So if you're going to eat a carnivore, you're going to be a carnivore. You're going to be wild. No, a zebra is not a carnivore. So what's wrong with eating zebra meat? So, in order to have a little bit of an idea of what is a zebra, or what the non-kosher animals are all about, according to the Kabbalah, you have to study Kabbalah, the Zohar. You will find some explanation, only some, as to why these or certain animals are not allowed to be part of our diet. But there are individuals who have a hard time with all of this. They point to those things that they're uncomfortable with, they don't understand. So we see from this right away that ignorance is your worst enemy. The fact that one does not know who he is, what his mission is, what he's supposed to accomplish. Imagine someone working at a big company, very, very prestigious company. And somebody comes to interview him. He's been working there for a while. Sir, why are you working here? Oh, I make good money. He didn't say anything about the company. He's thinking only about himself. He's making good money. There was once somebody that came to the Chazon Ish of blessed memory, and he says, I want to be a teacher. You know, could you guide me and help me out? He said, why would you want to be a teacher? He says, Rabbi, it pays well. He says, you should not be a teacher. A teacher should be someone who wants to teach, who wants to give to kids. You want to do this because you want to make money? Is that what you're thinking about? There's no loyalty there. If somebody says, instead of I'm making a good salary at the company, I really want to advance this company. I want to be a part of this success team. Wow, that's nice. We can count on you. You know, if he demonstrates this faithfully, then he may even advance in the company and rise to the top one day. But if he's only there because it pays well, that means he doesn't care, he's not connected. He doesn't identify with the cause. What does the company want to do? What do they want to achieve? So a Jew that does not have yediot, that does not have any information, is really missing out a lot. Why should he care about it? He doesn't even know what it's about. So v'yadata yom v'shevota, you should know, you will know hopefully. You'll be able to figure it out. At some point you will stop and think, and that will hopefully help you come back, help you return to your roots. How does it help someone do teshuvah just because he has the information now? Just like that, he returns. Now I have the information, now I know. There's a lot of people who know a lot of Torah, and they're not so committed. Knowledge helps in Yirat Shamayim. The moment a Jew realizes, wait a minute, this is for real. Now I understand that my grandparents were not primitive. They actually were prepared to give their lives for it. They must have understood something that I don't know. So when one does begin to immerse himself in the knowledge of our forefathers in the Torah, hopefully, it will ignite a spark in him. It will ignite the spark of Yirat Shamayim, of the fear of heaven. Once an individual has a little bit of fear of heaven, just a little bit, we can build on that. That's why I tell a lot of people who are scientifically oriented, who want proof and evidence that God exists, I say, wait with the proof and the evidence. You first have to take the leap. Make the assumption that what our forefathers saw and witnessed is true, that they didn't lie to us. Make that assumption. After all, witnesses' testimony is accepted in court, isn't it? Make the assumption that these were, after all, intelligent people, great rabbis who said what they said, people who witnessed what they said. And there were millions of them. Make the assumption that this is real. Because once you make the assumption, now you have questions that bother you, okay. But you've made the assumption, we can go on with the other questions. Otherwise, if one is going to wait for evidence, first I want evidence that this is real, that the creator of the world exists, that he created the world, not a Big Bang. He's never going to progress. It's going to take him years and years. If he's honest and if he's sincere, a lot of people just say that, but they're not even sincere. They don't care about the evidence. They've already made up their mind. They're not going to search. They're not going to take time. They're busy with their lives. Something that is so important to you, wouldn't you take the time to investigate it? Not everybody does, because it's not important to them. So once a Jew or a non-Jew has made the decision that this is important to me, I do want to investigate it, and he becomes more knowledgeable, that knowledge will hopefully give him a little bit of Yirat Shamayim, fear of heaven. Oh, apparently there is a God. Then why did this God create this world? What does he want? What does he need it for? Okay, that's fine. You can ask those questions. For those questions, we'll provide you with answers. But first, begin with that. Begin with that knowledge, that important piece of knowledge, that God did create the world. He took us out from Egypt. He gave us the Torah. That hopefully will ignite the Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven. Without the fear of heaven, you rebuke someone, you tell him off, you tell him that he's wrong, it may not help. He won't believe you. There's no Yirat Shamayim. There's no loyalty. There's no commitment. Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven, is the foundation. So now we can understand, when there's a lack of loyalty, it is directly connected to a very weak or lacking of Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven. If somebody did really have the fear of heaven, you think he wouldn't return that asimon? How could he steal? How could he take it for granted that he has enough money? It's okay. He forgives me. Who told you? Did you ask him? People make that kind of assumption, the wrong assumption. It's wrong. Do you know that it's wrong to take somebody else's money? And you're not a child. You're not a baby. You're a teenager. You're an adult. How could you do that? How could you ever think of that? So those who are very easygoing about it, they laugh. They're not serious. There's no Yirat Shamayim, or not enough Yirat Shamayim to hold them back. It's terrible. So how could they ever be loyal? You can't trust them. Some people will say, "Oh, this is kosher. I'm telling you, you can eat it. You can eat in my house." You know that they're not kosher. So could you trust him that what he bought was kosher? He himself does not care about it. And it's worse if he makes fun of it. Because sometimes a person may not be careful, but out of respect to you, he will buy a kosher meal. That's possible. But if you sense that this individual is totally not committed, makes fun of it, ridicules it, don't trust him at all. You can't. He's not qualified as a witness, the rabbis tell us, to testify on something that he doesn't care about. He has no attachment to. We can't accept him as a witness. Rabbis tell us, for example, people who gamble all the time, not once in a while with the slot machines, all the time, horse racing, they're disqualified from being a witness. And you wonder why. One explanation given is because they don't care about money. They're not responsible. They're not serious. They just want to gamble. That's all they do a whole day. You think they're going to care about somebody else's money? They're going to testify? Certain habits, certain occupations tell us a lot about the individual, about how honest he is. Could he be a witness or not? No. Such an individual, if that's all he does, is gamble. He doesn't care about losing money. And this is the way he wants to make the money, not by working hard. He's not going to care about somebody else's money, about people coming to a court, about some financial matter. Can you use him as a witness? No. There's no trust here. Complete lack of responsibility. So in the same way it is with a couple. With a couple also, loyalty is very important. How do you establish loyalty? So we just said Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is a statement that hopefully will strengthen our commitment with Hashem by declaring that Hashem is one. So husband and wife, imagine one telling each other, you're the only one in my life. I don't have anybody else. That's very special, because how does loyalty become shattered? Let's use the word shattered. How is it shattered if it existed in the beginning? When someone else is introduced, another woman, another man. Do you know that the couple comes first and the children second? Not everybody knows that. The couple comes first, then comes the children, then comes others. A lot of people have a problem with that because they're very close to a parent. That's very nice of you. Honor your parents for the rest of their life. But you come first. The Torah tells us, you want to have a strong relationship? You let go of your parents. You don't abandon them. It says you let go. And you stick to your spouse. It says v'davak. Davak is not just that you connect, you stick. In other words, you make this your priority. Loyalty basically will prompt us to make choices in life. What's the most important thing in your life? The union of the two is number one. It needs to be that way. Otherwise, it's going to suffer from all kinds of things that want to take away from our attention to each other. Even though they deserve a lot of attention. Yes, our dear children deserve a lot of attention and love. But they come second. Number one is the husband and wife. And that's sometimes very, very difficult. For some people, number one is their work. Or, God forbid, number one is some other person. Then the loyalty that we were talking about is weakened. So now you can see why loyalty with Hashem is very, very, very similar. Nothing else gets in the way. What did get in the way throughout our history? Well, during the First Temple era, idolatry, believe it or not. Idolatry, other gods, supposedly they're called gods, they're not. Other things got in the way. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hashem is only one. And if you want to be loyal and committed to Hashem, you can't let anything else get in the way. Once we understand what's important, that will help us invest our time and effort and money into that. Because I think it's normal for people to devote themselves to that which they care the most about. The problem is, what the choice will be for them. What are they going to care the most about? Are they going to care about their wife? Then they're going to take care of her. Are they going to take care of their children? In other words, what is going to be the most important thing in your life? What are you going to value? Are you going to value your relationship with God? This is very important to me. Then you're going to devote time to it. You're going to invest in it. Whatever is important to us, there is a better chance that we're going to be loyal to it. Because it's important. What did we say before? Lack of loyalty is usually because it's not important. And not important could also be because we don't understand that this should be important. We don't realize its value. So there's a lot of reasons of why things are not important. But human nature is such that people do not want to commit at the very, very basic level. And that is why they're not loyal. But here we're taking it one step further. You have people who are willing to commit, but sometimes they commit to the wrong things. And when they commit to the wrong things and they value them too much, those things get in the way of what should be important. Why are there so many divorces today? Yeah, because they don't treat this as the most important thing in their life. You gave her a diamond ring. You know why you gave her a diamond ring? Because they say diamonds are forever. Aren't you making a promise that this relationship hopefully will last forever. Oh, I didn't think of that. I just wanted to make her happy. Just gave her a diamond ring. because she was complaining to me. All her friends, got diamond rings and they got 5 carats. I want one too. You see, I actually had somebody telling me this. She broke off from someone because he didn't want to get her a 6-carat diamond ring because her friend got one. I don't want less than 6 carats. Why should I have anything less than my friend? I couldn't believe it. Am I hearing you right? Yeah. You see, they were valuing the wrong things. Don't you? He is your diamond. Your future husband should be your diamond. Your future wife should be your diamond. Your kids will be your diamonds. Those are real diamonds. This is stones. How do you understand this? It's very, very difficult to understand. Apparently their upbringing, their education, there's something that they were not taught, was not communicated to them. Very attached to materialism, which I'll talk about soon. And that gets in the way of the relationship. And if it's not day 1, then it's day 2 or day 10. At some point it's going to interfere with their life because they don't realize what's really important, where you should really invest your money and time, is in the relationship. And if you did, then you would hopefully be loyal to each other because you're investing. You want to do it. And how do you invest? Investing is done with maasim. Remember we spoke before about deeds. It's not enough to say, I love you. A lot of people are very good and very poetic in words. Words are cheap. They say, I love you, I care, I will do for you. Prove it. The proof is in the maasim, in the deeds, in the actions, not in the words. Let's see if you prove it. Are you prepared to take time to go out and to invest and to buy and to do? When one does for another, he proves that he cares about them. Take a quick example. Somebody is sick. He's in Cedar Sinai for Shabbat. Now Shabbat you can't drive to see him. You would love to see him. Are you going to walk and visit him? It's only an hour walk and it's not very hot outside. If you really care about him and he's by himself, there's no one else, then maybe you should walk. Not everybody's going to walk. Oh, 1 hour? No, I got to get my sleep for Shabbat afternoon. But what about your friend that you care about? You really care about him? You know that he's going to be so happy to see you if you walk over. If you can. You're physically fit. You can make it. Not a big deal. It's a long afternoon. We'll talk about when it's possible. Somebody that really cares and values their relationship will do whatever it takes to make another person happy, especially if they know that this is important to them. It's going to make a difference to them. You're going to put a smile on their face. You're going to make them feel better. All of this is loyalty. So Judaism is not about being a humanist. You know what a humanist is? Somebody that has a good heart. No. You have to prove it. You have to do things. So loyalty needs to be proven. And obviously someone who's not loyal is not going to commit. He's not going to sacrifice, do something which is difficult for them, if he doesn't value it enough. For sure not. He doesn't value it. But he should. So the purpose of the mitzvot that we have, the deeds, that's what we observe, is exactly that. To prove our loyalty to Hashem, plus to deepen the connection with Him. Besides the reward, yes, we will be rewarded for the mitzvot. Let's not talk about reward right now. These mitzvot that we perform, believe it or not, whether it's a lulav, whether it's eating kosher, any mitzvah, if we're doing it because Hashem said so, the fact that we're doing it for Him deepens the relationship. It proves that we're loyal. The more loyal one is, guess what happens? They're prepared to give their life for this. And our forefathers did. Whether it was in Spain, in Portugal, in many countries where they were challenged with their faith, no way in the world will I give up my faith. Wow, where did they take that courage from? It's not just courage, it's loyalty. There's no other alternative. This is the way it is. Life is not worth anything if I convert to something else. Imagine a man told the woman who is marrying, this is the way it's going to be. Nothing will set us apart except for death. Nothing in the world. There are people like that, but not enough. Not enough. Obviously, sometimes things happen. that we cannot control, and I'm not going to get into that sometimes divorce is a necessity. Judaism is not saying that there should be no divorce at all. Divorce is sometimes the remedy. The solution is not around. There's no solution for some problem. But the vast majority of relationships that ended up in divorce should never have ended up in divorce if they had the proper guidance and they really valued their relationship more than anything else in the world. Yes, people have weaknesses, they have problems. She doesn't cook like my mother. Okay, that's a complaint. I can understand that. It's important. You're the man. You need to have a good meal. I have a suggestion for you. Either your mother should come teach her, or find somebody that should substitute your wife. Maybe she's not the best cook. Yeah, pay for it. Now, your wife may not be so happy with that arrangement, but if that's going to contribute to the Shlom Bayit, this is what's going to make you happy, then that's better than a divorce. There's always some solution. You have to be willing to sacrifice. You can't get everything. And be willing to adjust if necessary. And think of sometimes a creative solution of how to overcome this problem. There's all kinds of situations that husband comes home, every time he comes home and he's tired and hungry, his wife yells at him, "You're never here for me with the kids, you never help me, I had a hard day today." All he wants to do now is just sit down calmly and have his dinner. This is not the time to yell and criticize him. But he realizes that she doesn't change. What should he do, divorce her? So there was a smart man. He decided that he's going to come home and he's not going to go inside right away. He's going to sit outside, park the car. He took out his coffee and his sandwich that he prepared for me before, and he eats calmly in the car. After he's satiated and calmed down, "Yes, honey, good evening, how's everybody?" Then even if she complains at that point, at least he's had something to eat. He thought about the problem. He thought that this is going to lead to a big fight, and he decided to take some action. It was in a positive way, not in a negative of a fight or a struggle. You have to sometimes give the benefit of the doubt too. Men sometimes are at fault. They come and they see dinner is not ready, and they see the wife is talking on the phone. "Aha, you're talking to your sister, your mother, right?" And they start cursing. And dinner is not ready. They're upset. And the problem is when this repeats itself a lot, there are many, many scars that are difficult to heal. If it happens once every year, it's not that so bad. But if it happens often that they argue and they fight over nothing usually, it creates a problem. She hangs up the phone. "Honey, I was not talking to my mother. I was not on the phone with my sister. I was on the phone with the doctor. You see, a couple hours ago, your son fell and he broke his finger. And I had to rush him to the doctor. And thank God everything is okay now. But I couldn't manage to prepare your dinner. I was very, very busy. I wasn't home." Had he waited and asked the question, had he given her the benefit of the doubt, isn't she usually on time? Isn't usually everything okay? Can't you usually trust her? Then why make such a big fight? Because he's tired and hungry, because he had a bad day at work. Then why let it out on your wife? So a lot of people make mistakes without the proper guidance, without realizing that human beings are not perfect. We have our weaknesses. Give them at least the benefit of the doubt, and then you're going to be safe. So, if we can give human beings the benefit of the doubt, don't you think it's a good idea to give God the benefit of the doubt? He must have done it for a good reason, whatever it is. We're going through some challenging times. I give him the benefit of the doubt. He loves me, he cares about me, even though now it seems that things are very, very tough and rough, but I give him the benefit of the doubt. If we don't think this way, if we don't have that kind of an attitude, if we're not loyal, if we don't value this, it's only going to weaken the relationship, whether it's with God or with a husband and wife. So ma'asim, the deeds that we do, observing the mitzvot, deeds between husband and wife, all of that helps to deepen the relationship, deepen the connection between the two. Not just words. So what gets in the way? Well, a lot of things get in the way, but the one I just want to talk about for the next few minutes is materialism. In order to understand materialism and how it gets in the way, the Maggid of Dubna gives a beautiful parable. on the words "Ve'afta et Hashem Elokecha," you're supposed to love God b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol manecha, with all your heart, with all your possessions, right? With your soul. You're supposed to love Him completely. But not everybody loves Him that much. And Dubno Magen explains with the following parable why not. There was once a farmer who came to town. He needed a new suit. So he went to the tailor, and the tailor takes a look at him and says, "You're a size 44. Tailors have experience just by looking at they can tell what size. Here's a suit for you." So he puts it on, and he takes a look, and he sees that it doesn't fit him, and he tells the tailor, "You don't know what you're talking about. Look, you gave me a suit that's so small. It doesn't fit me." So the tailor tells the farmer, "You're a fool. Take off your overalls first. Take them off. You're not supposed to put a suit on top of your overalls. You're supposed to remove what you have and then put your suit on, and you'll see." So Rabbi Dubna explains what happens with the love of Hashem is that people try to love Hashem having the love of all the possessions of this world as well. Being very materialistic, wanting to have all these things in life. You will not be able to love Hashem having all those things will be in the way. You can't. You have to first remove it. You have to remove those things out of the way, then the love of Hashem will be almost natural. The neshama, the soul is pure. The soul doesn't have an interest in all this physical world. But the soul is in the physical body. In a way it's trapped, because the physical body has wants and needs. So we have to be very careful not to overemphasize materialism, because that materialism is like the overall of the farmer. It gets in the way. If you remove it, you will see it's a lot easier to love Hashem. It's a lot easier to connect with Him and to do His wishes. A person who's very materialistic is going to be busy thinking about business and work and his car and all kinds of things except for the mitzvot. You can't have it both ways. The more spiritual a person is, the more he values spirituality. It's easier for him to love Hashem, of course. It's natural, it's normal. He's so good to me. Even though he's poor, he realizes how good Hashem is to him. But the more physical one is, the more materialistic it is, that physicality gets in the way. And the same is true with a couple. Materialism. She wants a bigger house because the neighbor has a bigger house. I actually had a couple come to me. And this is a wonderful couple, really. Wonderful couple, nice people, and he's a doctor, so he's doing well. And she feels bad. She tells me, "I feel very bad that I married him. I think I could have done better and married someone else, and we would have been living now in a 2-story home instead of a 1-story home." That's why she thinks she could have done better. Because with this doctor, with this young man, who's a wonderful person, she only got so far in life, only 1-story house, where had she married somebody else who was wealthier, she would have had a 2-story home. This is the way she was thinking, and I couldn't believe it again. How do you understand somebody like that? They're very into materialism. That is what they value this so much, or they're jealous of others, or both. That is interfering with their shalom bayit, with their happiness. It's complaints. And sometimes, the husband has no choice but to take a bigger mortgage just to make his wife happy. I feel bad for them. They don't want to destroy the relationship. But how do you teach her that she's not thinking in a healthy way? You shouldn't be thinking about it. Be happy. Look at the children that you have between the two of you. He's committed, and he's devoted, he's loyal. So these people need a lot of teaching about what is important in life and what not. So the prophet says, because throughout our history, the prophet is already telling us in advance, we valued materialism so much, they went after vanities and they became vain. Because when you pursue these things, look at the non-Jewish world. They sometimes stay overnight outside right before Black Friday, so they can go in and grab that gadget that just came out. That little toy that they're going to ignore in a couple of weeks or months from now, at the most. So much goes into, so much effort. The night before, they want to get in first. The night before, they're sleeping in the street. the sidewalk. Can you believe this? For what? For little gadgets, or for a big TV, 45-inch screen? I'm told there's bigger screens today. What for? Who needs this? But that's what they value. Look at this. If they value it, look what they're prepared to do. Imagine if they had that kind of a dedication for spiritual matters. There would be no problem of loyalty. So materialism is what really gets in the way a lot as far as the connection with spirituality is concerned. People are not as connected to spirituality if they're very, very materialistic. So Hashem has a cure for this, by the way. Hashem knows that people are materialistic, and He gave us the Shabbat. Now, Shabbat is a beautiful mitzvah. It's a big mitzvah. We're not going to talk about all the benefits of Shabbat right now, but it's really a blessed day. It's a holy day. Hashem says you have to work for a living for 6 days. I give you Shabbat to rest. You don't have to work. And some people want the curse for 7 days. Why do you want to work on the 7th day? You were told you only need to work 6 days a week. No, you want every day of the week. So Shabbat is intended for us to strengthen our connection with Hashem and with our family members, because a whole week we're busy. How many people do you know, families that sit down and eat dinner today, together? People are always eating at their own time, whenever they have time, if they eat at all. Sometimes they just grab a snack. The family unit has weakened. Hashem says, I gave you Shabbat. It's not only to physically rest from all the hard work, it's to connect with me. You may have forgotten about me, you may have forgotten about your family. Sit down and have a beautiful meal with your kids, sing together, say some Torah together. It's a whole different kind of an experience. But what will this do? Well, on Shabbat, because we make the Kiddush, because of the way we conduct ourselves, hopefully it will remind us of the real purpose of life, the real tachlit. Shabbat is number 7. It reminds us of the world to come. This world has 6 corners, 6 days. North, west, south, east, up, down. 6 corners. That's what this world is. It's a physical world. The 7th is the world to come. It's a spiritual world. So 7 is a holy day. Hashem says, I gave you one holy day, a holy day of the week, where you can experience holiness, where you can give the neshama that was in the cage a whole week, working, you can give it some menucha, some rest, and give it a chance to express itself. So once you abstain from all those 39 categories of work, melacha, the neshama has a chance to speak up and to feel something it does not feel a whole week. Believe me, I wish every day was Shabbat. If you keep Shabbat properly, you'll know what I mean. It's not just the food. It's the whole experience. You're experiencing, you're feeling holiness. And that enables the Jew, as a result of all that holiness, to want to connect to Hashem. Hashem says, here, I'm giving you a very powerful vitamin. It's going to help you, hopefully, take you away from that materialistic week and focus on the tachlit, the ultimate purpose of life. Your neshama hasn't been connected so strong a whole week. Now it can be. As long as the Shabbat is kept properly, it is possible for a Jew to connect. This is what brings blessing to the home. The blessing is not just financial. Baruch Hashem, you will have blessing in your work. It's also a blessing that the family can hopefully bond. Not everybody's all over the place during the week. They're together, hopefully eating together. So this Kedusha, this kind of an atmosphere, will enable the Jew, his soul, to elevate itself and to connect to Hashem in a very, very powerful way. You know where you see this also? I've talked about it in the lectures on NDE, near-death experiences, people who have died temporarily and they saw themselves above their physical body being drawn to a very, very powerful, beautiful, warm, white light. And they say that that light is the Shekhinah, the Divine Presence. But they feel drawn to it. They feel that love. They feel that they want to connect with it. They want to be absorbed into it. That's the feeling everyone has that has gone through an NDE, Jew or non-Jew. What is that? It's the soul. The soul does want to connect. It's the physical body that says, no, I want to enjoy. I want to have my pleasures. It's the physical body that gets in the way. So people don't realize that. If they value all the physicality, whether it's money or pleasures, it's going to get in the way of any relationship, husband, wife, or with God. As you can see, from the Shabbat, from the NDE, the Neshama wants to connect to Hashem. So since the Neshama on its own does want to connect, we have the mitzvah, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. Love Hashem. As one rabbi asked, how is it possible to command someone to love God? To love? How can you command to love? Love is something that's supposed to come on our own. We're supposed to somehow love Hashem on our own, to cultivate that, to develop that sense. How could you command someone? If you command him, it's not real love. You understand the question? How could you command to love Hashem? You should want to on your own. So he explains beautifully. He says, because the neshama really does want to. There's just things that get in the way. Because the neshama intrinsically, naturally, wants to connect to Hashem, it is possible to command it and to remind it. Be careful you don't do anything that will get in the way. So the love for Hashem is be careful that you don't let other things get in the way, that you will love more. Because if you will love something else a lot more, you'll have a hard time connecting with Hashem. So, what do we learn from all of this so far? Loyalty is possible for everyone to have, as long as it's pure. The neshama is pure from any impurities of materialism and the like. Then there's more of a chance that the individual can be loyal. Because if the neshama is pure, it will have greater clarity, it will not have a problem committing, it will hopefully have that fear of God that we said before you need to have. It's pure. It senses what's important in their life. I'm going to worry about $1 and keep it. I'm going to give it back to him. What's the question about it? But people say, oh, it's free money, or whatever it is. They value silly things, as the prophet says. They go after the vanities, so they become vain. That's what they become. You'd be surprised. Listen to some of the conversations of the average individual out there, if you're able to see what he talks about. I was once on the bus in Israel, and two bus drivers were talking to each other, the driver and another one. Oh, you should have been in the house of Moshe last night. You should have seen what kind of burekas he had. Such beautiful, big burekas. I'm telling you, you've never seen burekas like that. That's for the next 5 minutes, all he spoke was about burekas. I couldn't believe it. That's all. That's it. You missed out. You should have been there. So you can tell a lot by the conversation of people. What is it that they value? And the problem is that because of what they value, it will interfere with the love of Hashem. Anyway, just to finish up, what are we going to do about all those that have become so distant? Moshe Rabbeinu sees the future. He knows that this will happen. He gives us as much information as he can. But what can we do when we see these individuals? Is there any way that we can help them? Moshe tells that generation, "Ata horeta ladat kashem Elokim." To that generation, he tells, you have seen it, you have experienced it, it has been proven to you, you've been convinced that God is for real. Okay, yes. All right, but how are we going to convince those who didn't see it? How do we get them to connect? How do we get them to observe the mitzvot? How do we get them to value this? How do we get them to not get lost, and to be misled? I think the best answer is what the Baal Shem Tov said once. The Baal Shem Tov said something beautiful. He says, every day the rabbis tell us there's a heavenly voice that comes out from Mount Sinai and tells us, return to me, my children. So the Baal Shem Tov says, no one hears that heavenly voice. Why does it come out? And why is it that we don't hear it? In other words, what's the purpose of that heavenly voice coming out to begin with if we're not going to hear it? And why don't we hear it? So he says it's not audible to the physical ear. This is a heavenly voice that the neshama does hear. And at some point, the soul is awakened. People have gone to the Western Wall. For the first time in their life, they're not so religious and they began to cry. They don't know why. There are times when that soul is awakened. And that's also a chesed from Hashem, to awaken the individual. But if there's no fear of heaven at all, if there's no spark there, it's a lot more difficult to awaken him. That is why Hashem, through Moshe, tells us, remember that sound of the shofar that you heard in Har Sinai? If you look at the way the Torah describes that sound of the shofar, it became stronger and stronger, and it didn't stop. Usually when a human being blows a shofar, it becomes weaker, and it stops. That sound of the shofar was continuing. V'lo yasaf, it didn't stop. It's stronger and stronger. What for? Why did Hashem have to make such a strong shofar? So the answer to that is, for future generations, the waves of that sound, the spiritual waves, are still there. And they are the ones that awaken. That's that heavenly voice that comes out. They're still there, awakening people. And that is what Hashem says, that the whole idea of why He did this in such a grand way was that you should learn li'irayat Hashem Elokecha, that you should fear Hashem. In other words, something has to be in the air from back then to awaken those people who have no idea and they're not at fault. They're innocent. They're totally innocent. But still, Hashem wants His kids back. He wants them to return to Him. He wants them to be loyal to Him. So He has to awaken them. That is why today we have, Baruch Hashem, one of the prophecies coming true where there's a tremendous amount of people doing teshuvah. Children are bringing back their parents. Grandchildren are bringing back their grandparents too. It's beautiful to see it everywhere. We still have a lot of work to do, but Hashem is helping. We actually see it, that people are starting to think, picking up information that they didn't have before. The internet in some ways is helping. I say in some ways because there's a lot of not good information on the internet. But there's some valuable tools that can help those who are seeking to understand who they are and what is their mission in life. So hopefully, if they have a little bit of Yirat Shamayim, it will be easier for them. Just want to end that Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven, is really the bottom line. That is how Kohelet, Solomon, chose to finish his book. Kohelet. Sof davar hakol nishma et Elohim yirah v'mitzotav shel ki zeh kol ha'adam. The bottom line is, it's not how much money you make. It's not necessarily how much you learned. It's beautiful, you learned a lot. It's the Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim hi otzaro, the rabbis tell us. That is the treasure of Hashem. A lot of people have a talent. They know everything. They memorized everything. They're geniuses. Hashem says, I care about Yirat Shamayim. That is my treasure. That is what I store in my treasure. Because that is the free will. If a person is very intelligent and has a photographic memory, that is a gift from Shamayim. It's not something that he acquired on his own. Hashem says, I value what you did on your own, not what I gave you. I gave you the money. I gave you your kids. I gave you your wife. That's all I give you. Hakol b'dei Shamayim. That's all in the hands of heaven. Chutz mirat Shamayim, except for the fear of heaven. That is why, that is the most important thing, to develop that fear of heaven as to the maximum, and that will help us get closer to Hashem. I think that it's very clear to us today that throughout our history, the Jewish people did show a tremendous amount of self-sacrifice. They really did show that love for Hashem. Many people did. Not all, but many did show how much they care about Judaism, how much they care about Hashem. They gave their lives for it. So you know what's coming next? Now it's Hashem's turn. He will demonstrate to the entire world how much He loves us very soon. Amen.